Hello everyone, I'm Bunny Bouncer and welcome back to my rabbit hole of gaming and all things in the geekdom. So I was going to do this video last week, I recorded it and everything, and then I was helping my family paint some buildings on the ranch and that took a few days. Honestly, it's been a really busy last couple of weeks. But after we were done painting, I started getting into the editing of the video and I realized one of the points I was making kind of got erased, removed the day after I recorded. So I ended up pushing the video off. Fun fact about me, I grew up in a gamer household. I used to sit with my mom and run around on her characters when I was little, and then as I got older, she would make me characters on her account on games like EverQuest or Dark Age of Camelot. My first MMO I played by myself on my own account was EverQuest 2 when I was 10. My parents gamed together. I grew up watching my dad play Ultima Online and all the same games my mom did. My brothers are hardcore into MMOs. I grew up playing MMOs. And there are things I experienced in MMOs when I was younger, the older style MMOs, that these newer MMOs, they just don't have. And I miss them. Before I dive into what those things are, comment down below if you grew up playing MMOs and what MMOs you played. And also, if you're not subscribed, make sure you go ahead and you do that. One of the things I missed in the older MMOs I played were the occupations within the deep, thriving role-playing community in those games. So in EQ2, there was no fast travel. You had wizards and their wizard spires, and you had druids and their druid spires, and they were the fast travel system. So you would have to get on, and if you wanted to travel across the map, you had to find a druid or a wizard in your area who had that spot unlocked, who could teleport you to that spot. And they would charge you certain fees, and the further away you went, they would charge you more. And that was the fast travel system. It was the fast travel system that is in games now, but it was better because it was driven by the community. And I loved having that in the game. It was things like that that gave people occupations within the game that they could continue enjoying and getting on for, even when they were kind of tired of the more hardcore content that made up the majority of the game. I had a job in EQ2 as a house decorator because people would get their houses and they wanted to be a part of the whole role-playing feel and they wanted to camp out in their houses. But the problem was they had all these, achievement house items that were cluttering their houses. So they would hire me to move all this stuff and decorate their house so they felt like they were coming home and logging out in their actual house. They don't really have the capability for stuff like that in games anymore. Before they had marriage systems in like Final Fantasy XIV where you can actually set up and plan your own marriage, there would be people shouting as chaplains and they would get hired to plan people's in-game weddings and they would, supply the white robes and the black, cloth armor clothing stuff and they would plan ceremonies for people to get married in-game. The different little occupations people found and made themselves in the game made it feel more real, and it made it a lot of fun. It was heavily dependent on people being very invested in the games. So the thing that I was going to talk about that I ended up changing my mind on was the fact that I felt like the content wasn't as hard. It has small spurts of difficulty, but as a whole, it doesn't feel as hard as it used to be. But then I reached Shadowbringers in Final Fantasy XIV, and my mind is starting to be changed because the dungeons and the duties I've been doing lately have been so difficult. So I'm on the fence on whether or not I think it is more difficult now or was more difficult then. So, The food and potions. The only game I crafted in was EQ2, and I was a cook. And you made some good money off of selling well-made food and well-made potions because they were actually useful. I have not come across a game in years where I felt like me forgetting to use potions or forgetting to eat food actually mattered. And I actually miss that being important. It probably seems like a small or a silly thing, but that was something that I enjoyed. Regen felt so much slower in past games. There were times in some groups that I was in where, you would have to take a communal break in the middle of the dungeon for people to refresh their food or to take a potion to make sure that they were ready for the next fight. And it felt like it took forever. And one of the ways that you avoided that was having good, high quality food and also supplying potions, because the region was just too slow to sit and wait for. So the potions and the food mattered, but also the different variety of potions. So if you weren't a rogue type class and you couldn't by default sneak through certain zones and certain areas, the invisibility potions gave you the chance to do that so that you didn't have to fight your way through everything. And I want to say it was in EverQuest 2 where you had creature potions where you could transform into certain creatures. And when you transformed into these creatures, you could go up to those mobs in world and they wouldn't attack you, because they read you as the same thing as them. Now, my last thing, and this is a really big thing to me because I am a visual gamer. I miss the cities in older MMOs. Older MMOs, they just had better cities. They were bigger, they had these cool hidden gems inside them. There was just more put into them. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to take it even further. Older games had better all-around zones. I remember running around the Hibernian city Turnanog in Dark Age of Camelot, and there was this tiny little slit in one of the city walls, and there's, ivies and crystals and stuff growing everywhere, so it was kind of hard to see. But I ran past it, and there was no zone lines, there was nothing above it indicating what it was, but I clicked it, and it teleported me to an alternate dimension full of vampires. And in Dark Age of Camelot, that was how you became a vampire, as you went into that zone, and I can't remember if it was a quest or you got attacked or what it was, but that was how you became a vampire. And that was a really cool thing to find. And they also had things like Darkness Falls. That's a zone that me and my family still talk about to this day because it was so creepy and it was so cool. But also it was really, really good realm versus realm gaming there. But I also think about like Fadark and EverQuest 2, which is probably my favorite set of zones in any game I've ever played. It's like Avatar meets fairies. And Kelethin with its acorn, elevators and lifts and its tree houses, it was just so beautiful. And if you were a fae, you had the default ability to glide. And so you could jump off of the city heights and glide all the way down to the bottom of the map. And it was so much fun. And Nectulos Forest. And then when you accidentally stumbled on Nectulos Castle, it was like this moment of, oh no, because it was so freaky and it was so creepy. There was no part of that zone that didn't just kind of make you uneasy and scared. They were just visually so much fun to just run around in. All in all, I love the advancements that MMOs have made. They have just made leaps and bounds since when I started gaming. But there are still things I miss about older MMOs. I think that New World is supposed to be kind of going back to that older MMO feel. So I don't know, maybe they'll bridge that gap for me. Comment down below if you miss anything from older MMOs that you played.